What is up, humans of the cardboard? Welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I've got another deck profile. This time we're revisiting Magical Musketeers. I probably update this deck every couple of months because it's in and out one of my favorite decks overall, straight up in all of Yu-Gi-Oh. So I love to try new things with it. I think because of the way the deck works, we can get new archetypes at any point that just really randomly, not randomly, but just work with it perfectly, because any deck that one, doesn't need its normal summon, and two, has a spell searcher, or at least one card spell engine, you're kind of doing stuff. So it works with Magical Musketeers. Hopefully we'll get more stuff down in the future. I don't know if Amazement is perfect, but it is a really good match. So that's what I'm looking at today, because I actually think this is a pretty good control variant of the deck that can go first pretty well. Outlich was another one. Dogmatica was something I thought had potential, but really when you look closer at it, it actually doesn't work as well as you think. But today we are looking at Magical Musketeer Amazement. So there we go. Let's jump into the profile. Nothing too crazy going on here. Starting off with the monsters, 3 copies of Magical Musketeer. Caspar, he is the best one by far. He is my favorite one by far. If you don't know how Musketeers work real quick, I might as well just explain it now. They all have the same first effect, which is during either player's turn, you can just activate musket, spell, and traps directly from your hand, which means traps and quick play spells can just be activated during your opponent's turn or your turn. So you don't have to set traps, you don't have to set quick play spells. They can just activate whenever while you have a Musketeer on field. And then they all have a secondary effect where if any spell or trap is activated in their column, whether it's yours or your opponent's, as long as it's in their column, they will trigger to do something. Gaspar's the best one because he just searches you any Magical Musketeer card when that happens. You also play triple Starfire. She will search you, or she will special summon any Magical Musketeer monster straight out of the deck when anything's activated in her column, which is really good. But other than that, the same. And then I play a couple one-offs. 1 Kid Brave, 1 Doc, and 1 Calamity. Kid Brave's cool. He lets you, when a spell or trap's activated in his column, he can discard a musket card to draw 2. So when you open a heavy musket hand, he can be nice to kind of just help unbrick those. Draw further into something else. And then Doc will, it's like Caspar, but he adds from grave instead of deck. And then Calamity can revive a Musketeer monster when a card is activated in her column. So really solid. Only playing 9, that might be low compared to what other people have done in the past. But I think for me, it feels pretty good. We're playing cards that help us find these easier. But I definitely understand the concern, because Musketeers are one of those decks where if you see a Musketeer without your spells and traps, you're kind of in trouble. If you see the spells and traps without seeing a monster, you're in a lot of trouble. So I understand the concern, but I still think overall that I'm cool with the Musketeers. So at 9, so running around with 9, we have other cards we'll get to that definitely help with that. And then for the Amazement engine, it's just this. It's just 2 Arlequinos. 3 feels like overkill. You don't want to brick on multiple. But 2 feels like a pretty good number. You could definitely make use of 2 in a single duel. But 3 feels a little bit lofty. I get it. You want to max on your ability to see it plus impermanence. But I don't think you really need to. I think playing 3 is going to be too bricky. If you don't know what he does, if you activate a trap, if any trap is actually activated, he summons from hand. Then if your opponent summons a monster, he can equip a Amazement spell or trap or attractions trap directly from the deck to that monster. And he can also banish attraction traps from grave to pop a card on the field, which is cool. So that's it for the real monsters. The last couple monsters I play are triple Ash Blossom and triple Dimension Shifter. Insane. So this is one of those decks where you have very little graveyard synergy. Your graveyard synergy is this. Arlequino can banish attraction traps or grave to pop cards. Doesn't come up all the time, but I guess that you lose access to that. Doc can't, Doc can add stuff that's already in grave back, but obviously this keeps stuff from ending up in grave, so it can hold Doc off for a couple turns for being useful. And same thing with Calamity. She reborns a Musketeer, but these 2 do not come up until later in the duel anyway, so I really don't think it conflicts with them. And Arlequino is a super minute effect that it's not the most important thing in the world. So this card just ends turns. If you're going second, it essentially makes you go first, and we love that. especially if you drop it after your opponent's already committed a card or two to the field, then you're able to, like, your opponent did nothing and they left stuff on the field so you can max them, which is really good. And then Ash is Ash, don't need to explain that. Moving into the spells. Triple Prosperity. Sorry. Don't be concerned here. I know this card's crazy expensive. I do think you can get away with playing Desires here, and I don't think it'll be that big of a loss. My only thing here is I'm playing 9 Musketeers, and I'm only playing 9 Musketeers because seeing this and this resolving essentially means you get a Musketeer to hand if you didn't already have one, right? Looking 6 cards deep for 1 out of 9 cards. 1 of 9 cards is like, you have a really good chance of hitting a Musketeer if you need one. So if you're playing this instead of Desires, the only thing is if you're playing Desires, maybe you just up the count of Musketeers a little bit, play 2 Doc or play 2 Kid Brave. I don't know, do whatever you want to do, but I think you probably need a slightly higher count there. Triple copies of Amazing Time Ticket. This is the reason that these archetypes even combine. I know it's just a 3 of, but like you pretty much need some kind of synergy like this to even make like the archetype you're combining with muskets to be worth at all. So it's not only that, but it's also a quick play spell. So it even has synergy of like being able to be set. So you could like theoretically like set this because, okay, if you don't know how this card works, during your turn, it searches a monster, but during the opponent's turn, it sets a trap, one of the amazement traps straight from the deck, and it can be activated that turn. So it is a live disruption. So the idea would be like, if I have Caspar, I can set this under Caspar, activate it to set the trap, and then like if I had another monster, or even like even better example, if I just have Starfire, right? Maybe they impermed Starfire on my turn so it didn't resolve to summon. If I go this, flip this on my opponent's turn, like set the trap, then Starfire summons Caspar, and now the trap's under Caspar, and then I can disrupt them with the trap and then get a search for another disruption off of Caspar. So there's like really cool synergy that way where you're just able to like get a ton of pluses while also effectively disrupting your opponent. And I think that synergy is just like bomb. It's so good. The only other spell I play is Triple Cross Domination. So the Magical Musket, this is probably overall the best one. It targets a monster on the field, negates its effects till the end of the turn, and then also makes its attack and defense 0 till the end of the turn. So really solid. It saves you in the battle phase while also having utility as a disruption. It's a really good card overall, to be honest, because it's just so versatile, right? It just lets your Musketeer, it can be used just as a battle thing that lets you beat over your opponent's stuff. Really solid. Then for the traps, Triple Desperado. We go a little heavier on the traps because we want to have that amazement synergy. We want to have stuff that's going to be able to trigger Arlecchino. So Desperado obviously fulfills that. This is essentially Trident, targets any face-up card on the field and destroys it as long as you control a magical musketeer. Triple Last Stand. This is a spell and trap negate, and I love that it's a counter trap that can be activated from hand. Really, really solid. Lets you play into back row matchups. Right, so you can like make Max. So like the best part about it is like you can make Max to summon like multiple monsters from deck into a back row deck, and if they try to like do something to you, as long as they don't have judgment, you negate the trap that they try to like stop him with, the spell or trap they try to stop him with, and it's a counter trap. So if they don't have exactly judgment, like, or a counter trap, they just like can't respond anymore, and you will resolve for a bunch of monsters. And now like you have ways to like bait out more interruptions and like make it happen. So really, really cool. I like that at 3. 2 copies of Dancing Needle rounding out the Magical Musket package. Some people only play 1 of this because it is pretty searchable, but honestly, this card's just so insane. If you don't know what this card is, if you control a Magical Musket monster, you could target up to 3 cards in the graveyards and banish them. So I love that, 1, it's not just monsters, it's any 3 cards in grave and banish them, and it's fucking 3 cards. You could target 3 cards and banish them. So this card's insane, and it's searchable, and you'll just win. Like that card single-handedly like beats strikers if it resolves. Like you just win. They can't, like it's so hard for them to like, you banish like Engage, Array, and like any other like striker spell, and they probably can't like win. They can win for sure, but like it's you know, it's gonna be tough for them. I am maxing out on the Horror House. I know there's other ones that are like okay, they have some okay utility, but honestly, this is the one. It's just the one. It's the best. If it's equipped to an opponent's monster, you can like flip that monster face down, and if it's equipped to your own Amazement monster, you can just target an opponent's monster and negate its effects, so just kind of imperm it, which can come up, right? Because like if you have your own Arlecchino and Book of Mooning isn't as good, you can just Horror House to the Arlecchino and then it's live. But you have to keep in mind, if Arlecchino's equipping from the deck, he can only equip to the monster that was summoned by your opponent. So you can't do it that way. You just have to have this and Arlecchino to do that imperm effect, which is fine. The Book of Moon's generally better, but the imperm can come up. Speaking of imperm, finishing off with 3 impermanents. I know this isn't super budget either, but this card 1 has synergy with Arlecchino to help him trigger, especially going second. If you open these 2 going second, oh my god, it's like multi-faker imperm. Like it actually is. It's crazy. But yeah, this card's really solid. It triggers Arlecchino, but it's also another spell or trap that you can set in the Musketeer columns just to help them trigger their effects. And yeah, so the synergy is actually really good. I think like you kind of have to play this card. And it's also pretty good in the meta, right? Like while Tri-Brigade's like the most represented deck right now, this card actually has a place in main decks. So 40 cards in the main. It's honestly not a super spicy deck, I would say, outside of like just playing the Amazements in general. But as far as like spicy techs go, there's really not a lot going on there. I think I'm just keeping it simple, concise, not getting too cheeky, just trying to keep it strong and consistent. Into the extra deck, Triple Max. This is non-negotiable. This is the best card in the deck. You're either summoning monsters equal to the number of spell and traps your opponent controls, or you're adding spell and traps up to the number of monsters your opponent controls. But either way, if this card resolves, your opponent is in a world of hurt. So, very good. Then for what I like to call like this really cool, like, well, I don't like to call it, but it's like a really cool rank 4 package, or link 2 package, geez, rank 4. 1 Phoenix, 1 Cerberus, 1 Security Dragon, 1 Akashic Magician, and 1 Geonator Resonator. So essentially what all of these are some form of removal. All 5 of them are some form of removal in a link 2. Phoenix pops back row, Cerberus pops special summoned monsters in the main monster zone. Security Dragon bounces monsters. Akashic bounces whatever she's pointing to on summon. And Geonator Transverser can like swap control of 2 monsters she points to, but it's non-targeting, so that could be nice. Same thing with Akashic non-targeting. So the idea here is when you resolve Max and get a ton of bodies on the board in certain situations, sometimes you just like have link 4 worth of materials, but you always want to get into the link 2s first, because why not get that insane value? Why not pop a back row, bounce a monster on your way to going into access code or whatever other link 4 you want to make, right? So I really like these because you can just like pair up any 2 of these essentially, and it's gonna like get you some really solid removal before you even try to commit into a bigger monster. So really solid. If you really look through it, like you really cover like all your bases here. This just feels really good all in all, so I like it. Also playing 1 Lina, 1 Hippo Shingen. Honestly, this might even just be 2 Linas if I had a second one, but for now, this is fine. Like, the deck is light, so you probably just play Lina. You probably just play Lina in any deck that plays lights and doesn't lock you out of it, like, because why not? 1 Hip, it's cool, like it floats and it also buffs all your lights, which actually can matter because like Caspar is only 1200 attack, so at least making it 17 does block out a couple of things. It also makes him 25 defense. Same with Starfire, makes her 22 defense and 18 attack, so it gets her decent. Kid Brave goes to 2100 attack, 19 for Doc, 2000 for Calamity. So it does help get them all to like a decent threshold. So that's why I play it, and also floats if it's destroyed. So that's pretty worth also. Unicorn, because like you got to play Unicorn. Yeah. Then Access Code and Boral Sword for the OTK boys. You don't have to play Access Code. Honestly, if you have Boral Sword, that's probably enough. Especially if you're making the link 2s first. You're going to be removing stuff before you even try to get into these. So that's honestly pretty good. But if you have it, I think you should probably play it. And I honestly think there's also room for like other links too. Like I'm not playing Avermax or Appaloosa, but those are some more defensive, even IP, like more defensive links that you could play. There's definitely room in here to wiggle around. Like and try and figure out what works for you, or if something a little budget is what you're looking for. I definitely wouldn't blast you if you swapped the Access Code for Avermax, but yeah, there's definitely some wiggle room on some of this stuff. Definitely not a solved extra deck by any means. And then finishing up here, 1 Utopia and 1 Utopia Lightning. You can either resolve max to get 2 level 4s or go Starfire into Calamity, or at a later point in the duel, go Calamity into a Starfire from Grave and essentially get into a rank 4. So this is just an out to certain things like Dragoon or any other big body, potentially even the Adignister Link 6 if they didn't make it with 6,000 attacks. So yeah, just something cool to throw out there, and like definitely to consider as just like something to have an out. You could also try and, like I said, the extra has wiggle room. You could also try and play other rank 4s, but I don't like to generally try and go into the link 4s if I don't have to. So just this as like a cool extra out for like very specific situations. But yeah, that's pretty much it. It's a cool deck. It really is. Like, I love Musketeers. I think as the years go on, the deck doesn't even need to get support, because if we just get any other new somewhat generic, like splashable archetype that has like a spell that searches stuff, that gets the engine going, and it doesn't necessarily need its normal summon, then like boom, it's gonna have synergy with this deck. And yeah, so I definitely am gonna keep an eye out for that. But the deck's really cool. I'm definitely want to test it out more, see if it's actually like solid. But I know it's solid, I just don't know how solid, you know. It's one of those things. But definitely a really cool like rogue deck that you can definitely compete with meta with. And yeah, I definitely recommend it. So that's gonna do it for me here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, of course, please leave your suggestions for the list. Anything that's not in here that you think probably should be, let me know in the comments down below, because I'm just one guy building these decks in my lonesome. Oh, drop the deck box. So yeah, like, let me know your suggestions down below. I definitely love hearing you guys' suggestions, but that's gonna do it for me here. Thank you again. Subscribe if you haven't. You want to see more deck profiles from your boy, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.